Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 25 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the sunny and beautiful confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. I actually have a little bit of a different type of episode for you guys today. This one will be a little bit longer than usual, so if you got time, or you got some time on a day off, or definitely check this one out. This episode that I'm doing is an NFL deep dive. That'll be the name of a lot of my real deep research segments. It'll be called NFL Deep Dive or NBA Deep Dive, so on and so forth. This one is about the draft and the success rate of quarterbacks within the draft and how successful those quarterbacks may be in going towards a second or third contract. It's something I've thought about a lot. After all of that draft coverage, it was something it's kind of stupid funny in the regard of, I thought about it after the draft, like, wait a minute. Every year in my life, I always hear about this guy's the next can't miss prospect, that guy's a can't miss prospect, or that guy's going to be a hit, or this guy's going to be a bum. I never really sat back and wondered, like, well, you know what? Statistically speaking, how many of them guys actually do make it? And the numbers are quite fucking startling when you really look at it. It's literally playing the lottery, and I'll dive into it. Name of this segment, like I said, it's called NFL Deep Dive, but it's going to be about the history of successful first round quarterbacks. So again, I went over the past, 36. I went over the past 39 years because, I tried to go back as far as I possibly could to the beginning of the common draft. It's a little bit hard because, the draft was just done differently. Now it's shortened and it's split over time, where it used to be 14 rounds or 20 rounds, and it used to be a lot. So keep in mind that when I say common draft era, I'm talking from essentially the 50s up until now, 60s up until now. But I wanted to go back as far back as when, my parents were kids. Because, some people, you kind of miss people with that shit, trying to go far back, way, way back in the vault. So I try to go back at least, within my time frame, a little bit older than me, to see, what the success rate has been. And the numbers, again, were quite stark. Dating back to 1983, 44.4% of the first round quarterbacks ended up failures. So you could take that as, well, 45, and, if you're doing the math, that means you got roughly another 45 to 55 that, were successful. Yeah, a little over half. Right. Thing is, though, 44% of all those quarterbacks being failures is a very stark number. What it's essentially saying is almost half don't make it. A little under half, about 5 percentage points off of half don't make it. So that's very crazy to see. From 1998 to 2010, where that was before the draft format changed with the rookie wage scale. Because again, as I was just reiterating to you, there was a common draft era, which we're in now. Then they modified the draft, and then now they've modified the draft again. So pretty much up until 2010, the draft was how it was back in the day. And then from 2011 forward, with the rookie wage scale, we're basically, depending on where the players are drafted in the draft, that dictates how much they get paid per position, per rank, per slot, so on and so forth. But stating, from 1998 to 2010, only 20 quarterbacks were drafted in the top 10. So again, it's a long time. You're like, okay, 20 is a decent number. It's not a huge number, right? Bear in mind, though, since 2011 and the start of that rookie wage scale, through the 2022 season, 38 quarterbacks have been drafted in the first round. So what is that more or less an explanation on? Teams are willing to take more chances. You have that rookie wage scale. It's not like back in the day where you had Sam Bradford or Jamarcus Russell or some of these guys coming through that didn't work out, where you had to commit major money to these guys. And then it's like, damn, the franchise is sandbagged for about 4 years. And then we got to figure out the next move. So this gives teams more of a incentive for lack of better words, to take risk and go after guys. But 38 quarterbacks is stark, and that means that's a lot of guys that fucking failed. That's just the reality of it. That just tells me a lot failed. Out of that 38, 20 of those quarterbacks were allowed to leave their team that drafted them without receiving their second contract. So again, little over half. It just goes to show you again where if you don't put the work in, you don't do the talent evaluation correctly, you don't really source with the information with these guys or really evaluate the tape the way you need to, you're gonna fucking miss. I mean, it's a crapshoot. This shit is already, before I even go any further, this enough alone should tell you it's a lottery. But you'll see how crazy the numbers get. Only 5 of those quarterbacks since 1983, only 5 have earned first or second team All-Pro honors. 8 of them have led their teams to multiple playoff victories. Oh, it gets slimmer. The numbers get slimmer. I just warn you. And to highlight that and to bring that to speed up to this year, you had Chicago, New England, Washington, and Atlanta all draft a quarterback this year. So you can make that 9 times. So since, from 1998 all the way up until 2010, pre-rookie wage scale, the players that had success or hits, the average amount of hit rate of a player being good, 38 and a half guys, the average football player college football player had to average 38 and a half starts. If he didn't average 38 and a half collegiate starts, typically that meant he wasn't really ready. In comparison, then, just to give you an example, an average football player, if he had 38 and a half starts, it meant he was ready, that he was real good, he's ready, he knows what he's doing. If you saw a guy back in the day with 27 starts, it just showed you he's inexperienced, not really ready, and, he needed more repetition. Now, keep in mind, rookie wage scale can take more chances, can blow some money, not really going to hurt you financially with the cap. Since 2011, the hits and misses are now even at 29. So what I'm saying in English is the average starter, the average long-term college player, and the average guy who just caught a buzz and got the guys to notarize him and didn't really work out, the success rate is now the same because of the rookie wage scale. Because again, teams are able to take more chances and are able to basically fuck up and have a mulligan and say, we can just get another guy. We can just get another guy. Compared to the past 25, 30 years where you make that fuck up, it could possibly cost you your job within 3 years or 2 years. So again, more inexperienced players are getting through, which means you need more development. That's why a spring league is needed. That's why the NFL, it's amazing how they've got to get a young guy in and get him playing early. A lot of these young guys aren't fucking ready. And that's what that stat basically reads to you. If back in the day, it was clear lines of demarcation where, 38 and a half career starts, in a comparison to 27 starts, that shows me, this guy can do it, this guy can't. When I'm seeing that both it's split now, demarcation is even, where it's like, the guy who started a lot of games is at 29 starts and the guy who really hasn't played like that is at 20. That's a lot of gray area. That's a lot of gray area. A lot of guys that slip through the cracks that just don't fucking make it. Another startling fact that bring to your attention: 7 quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall have won the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman, John Elway, Jim Plunkett, Terry Bradshaw. So it's not undoable, but again, in the 100 years plus of the NFL's history, you only have 7 guys that have been able to do this. So this shows you how rare of a feat that is. And this other stat here that I came across, which I thought was very, very, very startling. It comes from a Spanish newspaper, AS.com, diarioas.com. It comes from American reporter Jeffrey May. He does some cross-writing, in America and also for AS.com. He showed and I want to make sure I give him his credit because he showed a very revealing stat that for the rest of my life I will never forget. Over 1.5 million players make it to go to play college football, which again is insanity, but it makes sense when you think about the country and how spread out it is and the different universities. Out of that 1.5 million, of those 1.5 million, 73,712 are the only ones that make it to college and make it to play college football. So out of 1.5 million, 73,000 make it. That is only 77.3% of the talent pool. Told you these numbers are going to get stark and get lower. As you go forward and you realize, okay, well, that's pretty dark. Okay, damn. 16,000 of those draft eligible players, which is only 1.6% of the college player pool. Of that 16,000, only 259 players will be drafted. So out of 16,000, you only have 259 that are actually going to get drafted. Hold on, let's take it a step further. This is only 0.016% of the draft eligible pool players. So there's a lot of guys, again, as I just stated, slipping through the cracks, not getting noticed, not getting burned, not getting their turn. Final statistics show, and this is even crazier, only 30% of those guys drafted will actually make the roster. And then to really fuck your head up, this is even crazier. Last but not least, players taken in the 6th and 7th rounds only have a 10 to 15% chance of making the team. And that's only within the first year or two of just to make the roster. And keep in mind, the average NFL career is 3 years. So you only have 3 years. If you don't do something within that time frame, it is very startling to see how we go into pre-draft type, combine, pro day workouts and all this bullshit and hoopla. And ultimately, most of the players aren't being evaluated. Most guys aren't going to make it. And most talent evaluators are going to fuck up because they didn't evaluate the pick properly or overvalued or undervalued a guy. It happens. But at the same time, it's very startling to show that the draft is really a fucking crapshoot. It's really a lottery. And without any certainty or any real firm assertions that this guy may be good at, you have no fucking clue what you're doing. So when you hear, just again, we're a month removed from the draft. When you hear these guys going in next year talking about this guy's a can't miss prospect or this guy's a Hall of Fame potential defender, keep in mind, they are probably fucking wrong. And keep in mind that most of those guys that are drafted aren't going to fucking make it. So, always be mindful of the fact that the NFL is not for a National Football League. It really stands for not for long. Guys, I want to thank you so much for your time today and sitting and watching this and listening to this NFL deep dive on the success rate of first-round quarterbacks. There'll be more segments like this to come along. I appreciate your time and energy today. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and take care.